One of the elders raised his hands. Almighty river, we acknowledge our wrongs. Please accept this humble gift and spare our village. The river roared like a wild animal. Its waters rushed higher and faster, crashing over everything in the way. Mary stood by the river bank, her boots sinking into the wet mud. Around her, chaos filled the air. Children crying, women shouting, and people running to save what they could. Mary, the water is coming for us, Enoch shouted, running towards her. Her face was pale, and her voice shook. Mary turned quickly, her sharp eyes scanning the crowd. Mothers clung to their children, men carried bundles of clothes or food, and others stood still, frozen with fear. How much time do we have? Mary asked, trying to stay calm. Not much, Enoch said, catching her breath. If we don't do something fast, the water will overtake the village. Mary's heart sank, but she steadied herself. She knew that this wasn't just a flood. For years, the village had mistreated the land. They cut down trees without planting new ones, dumped waste into the drains, and ignored the changes in the weather. Now, climate change had made everything worse. Mary was in the community as part of a climate awareness project, determined to help the people of this flood-stricken community. She had heard about the devastating floods, but seeing the damage in person, the barren riverbanks, clogged drains, and smoke from burning waste, made her realize how dire the situation was. Eno, gather everyone at the community hall, Mary said firmly. We need to come up with a plan. Eno was Mary's local guide. The community hall was packed with people. Fear filled the air as villagers whispered to each other. Mary stood in front, gripping the edge of a table to steady herself. The river isn't waiting for us to argue or panic, Mary said loudly, her voice cutting through the noise. If we don't act now, it will destroy everything. This isn't the first time, but the floods are getting worse because of how we treat the land. An elder stepped forward, worry etched on his face. But what can we do? The river is too powerful for us. Mary nodded. That's true, but even a lion is afraid of a swarm of bees. If we work together, we can protect our village, but we must start now. The villagers murmured, some nodding as her words sank in. Mary continued, every year, the rains are heavier and the river rises faster. This is happening because we have been careless, cutting down trees, clogging the drains, and burning waste. If we don't change, we will keep facing these floods. Slowly, the crowd began to listen, their fear turning into determination. Mary divided the villagers into teams. Some were tasked with clearing the blocked drains to let water flow. Others worked on reinforcing the riverbank with sandbags. A third group collected food, water, and blankets for anyone who might lose their home. While they worked, Bala, the village joker, showed up late as usual. He had a piece of cloth tied around his neck like a cape. Captain Bala is here to save the day, he shouted, striking a superhero pose. Despite the tension, a ripple of laughter spread through the crowd. Bala, stop fooling around and help, Enna said, though she couldn't hide her smile. Yes, ma'am, Bala replied, grabbing a shovel. Even as he worked, he made jokes that lightened the mood for everyone. As night fell, the rain started again, heavier than before. The villagers walked through the storm, their faces lit by lanterns and flashes of lightning. Suddenly, a loud cracking sound echoed through the air. Mary spun around to see part of the riverbank crumbling. Musa, she shouted to one of the men nearby. We need more sandbags over here. We are running out, Musa yelled back, his voice barely audible over the roar of the rain. Mary's mind raced. Use anything you can find, she shouted. Buckets, sacks, even your hands. Don't let the water through. The villagers sprang into action, determined not to give up. Just as the last sandbag was placed, the water surged again, rising dangerously close to the village. For a moment, it seemed like the river would win. But then, as if it had run out of strength, the water began to pull back, leaving behind mud and debris. The villagers cheered, but Mary didn't celebrate. She knew that this wasn't the end. The next morning, the villagers noticed something strange. Dead fish floated along the riverbank, their scales dull and their bellies bloated. At first, people thought it was a blessing, a free source of food after the disaster. Don't eat the fish, Mary warned as she examined one. Why not? Eno asked. We've always eaten fish from the river. Mary frowned. The flood likely washed chemicals from upstream farms into the water. It's dangerous. Mary collected water samples and sent them to a nearby lab. When the results came back, they confirmed her fears. The river was full of pesticides and other toxins. Gathering the villagers, Mary explained, this is what happens when we don't take care of the land. The chemicals we use on our farms don't stay in the soil. They get carried by rain and floods, poisoning the water. We need to find safer ways to farm. The villagers were shocked, but agreed to change their farming methods. The river isn't our enemy, she said, but it's showing us the results of our actions. Climate change is real, and it's making things worse, but we can do something about it. Eno held up a small plant. We need to plant trees. They will hold the soil together and slow the water. Musa added, and we need to stop dumping trash in the drains. If they are clear, the water can flow away instead of flooding the village. Mary nodded. Exactly. If we take care of the land, it will take care of us. Prevention is always better than cure. Mary also addressed the villagers' beliefs. Some of you think these floods are caused by spirits, she said. But they are not. They happen because of how we treat the environment. When we cut down trees or block the drains, we make the floods worse. An elder asked, so we have the power to stop this? Yes, Mary said. If we work together, we can make a very big difference. The night after the river began to recede, just as the villagers started to relax, a scream shattered the quiet night. It was a young mother of 3. She ran into the village square, her face pale with terror. My son is missing, she cried, clutching at anyone nearby. Mary rushed to her side. When did you last see him? Earlier this evening, the woman sobbed. He was playing near the riverbank with the other children. They came back, but he didn't. A chill ran through Mary. The river was still dangerous, with unstable banks and hidden currents. If the boy had wandered too close. We need to search now, Mary said firmly, rallying the villagers. Armed with lanterns and sticks, they fanned out towards the river, calling the boy's name into the night. The search felt endless, the darkness pressing in around them. Then, just as Mary began to fear the worst, Eno shouted from a cluster of trees near the bank. I found him! The boy was huddled on a high branch, soaked and shivering. He had climbed up when the water surged and was too scared to climb down. The villagers cheered as they brought him safely to his mother. Mary exhaled deeply, her heart pounding. This near tragedy was another reminder of how unforgiving nature could be and how much more they needed to protect themselves. In the weeks that followed, the village began to change. Trees were planted along the riverbank and the drains were cleaned. Bala, now nicknamed Captain Makode, led the children in planting more trees, making everyone laugh with his jokes. Just as Mary was about to leave, Bala ran up to her panting. Mary, we have a situation, a serious one. Mary raised an eyebrow. Bala, I hope this isn't another one of your jokes. No jokes this time, Bala held up his hands. The elders are at the riverbank. They want to negotiate with the river. Mary blinked. Negotiate? And aside, they think the river is angry because we haven't paid our dues. They want to offer something to calm it down. Mary became very confused. What dues? Bala leaned in. A goat. A big, fat, very confused goat. Mary groaned. Did the villagers not understand anything she had taught them? Let's go, she said. At the river bank, the elders gathered, muttering prayers. A white goat stood nearby, blissfully chewing on a leaf. One of the elders raised his hands. Almighty river, we acknowledge our wrongs. Please accept this humble gift and spare our village. Mary cleared her throat. Elder Musa, I respect your tradition, but this river isn't a person. It doesn't take bribes. But we've always done this, one of the younger men protested. It has worked before. Mary folded her arms. Or maybe the flood simply stopped because the rains ended. If you want to feed the river, why not plant more trees? That will actually stop the flood. The elders murmured. Bala stepped forward, clearing his throat dramatically. Ladies and gentlemen, what if... Hear me out. What if we compromise? We keep the goats and we name it Macaulay's guardian, and let it eat weeds that clog the drains. The villagers burst into laughter. The elders sighed. All right, Mary, no good sacrifices. But you must admit, Macaulay's guardian is a fine name. Mary shook her head, smiling. Fine. But if that goat floods the market with its eating habits, don't blame me. The villagers laughed as Bala led the newly promoted goat away, already composing a heroic theme song for it. A week later, Mary was helping the villagers build a drainage system when Bala strutted up, carrying a wooden staff. I have seen the future and it is bright, he announced. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the Great Flood Defense Festival. Mary raised an eyebrow. The what? The Great Flood Defense Festival, Bala repeated, grinning. Every year before the rains come, we will celebrate by planting trees, clearing drains, and, he paused for effect, having a grand wrestling match between Macaulay's guardian and the village's strongest man. The crowd burst into laughter. Mary crossed her arms. And how does this help? She said. Simple, Bala gestured wildly. People remember what they enjoy. If we make flood prevention fun, they will actually do it. No more waiting for disaster, just a festival of action. Mary tapped her chin. You know what? That's actually brilliant. Ella seemed very surprised. Did Mary just say Bala had a good idea? Bala struck a heroic pose. Captain Macaulay saves the day again. The villagers laughed, and before Mary knew it, plans for the Great Flood Defense Festival were already underway. As she watched the people come together, laughing, walking, and turning disaster prevention into a tradition, Mary knew that this time, Macaulay had truly changed. And somewhere in the background, Macaulay's guardian chewed another leaf, completely unaware of its upcoming wrestling debut.